So now we need to have access to the API, but if you look here, we are just change the state of the component using this modify. And the same way we use that to change the state, we can use that to get the state. So you can just get API using the get function from the control monad state class. So if you look at this get function, you're gonna see this is the same constraint on monad state for that M, and that M in our case is halogen. If you look at the make component function, you're gonna see this is halogen M. And if you look at the halogen M, you're gonna see there are many default uh, many default instances, including monad state. So it should work given this halogen M. It should return the state. But yeah, actually, the get we return the record here, which is the corresponding to the initial state, right? So here we actually need to extract this API from the actual state to use that. So correctly, we don't have the API in the state yet. We need to add that there. And to do that, we just need to pass API here and remove this const function and receive the API input here. Because remember, we are passing the API as input for the component here in the run UI function. And if you see here, the run UI function takes input as the second argument of the function. So in this case, the first is the component itself, and the second is the API. This argument then is passed through the component here, through the make component function. And the make component function initial state here receives as the first argument the input. So that input we pass in the run UI function is going to be this input here that we receive here, and we just pass that to the record. So this should fix this error right here. Okay, I see now what is happening is that the make component here is expecting a definition for that input. So we need to have a type for this make component function to the return value actually of this component input, pointing to this to the given API. So we can figure out API is not before but actually API, so we don't have this mismatch here between API before and API being API. And to do that, we're gonna specify here in the second parameter here of this component the input. So it's gonna be the wallet API type, right? Which is the type being passed in that run UI function. And because we removed this B, we can remove this guy here. And that's it. This fix our error. So this should be working already, I guess. Let's test that in the browser. I'll open again the development environment. Okay, value is not defined. Oh, okay. We need to fix that and we should be okay. This value here is actually lowercase. Let's see again. Balance this amount. And this has been all UtxOs being summed together. Actually, it happens that in this wallet, I have only tests ADA here and only a single UtxO having this amount here. But I have tested with my own wallets and it's showing the correct expected values. So we can even try that. Let's try to add another transaction here. Another UtxO using the faucet. I guess I can send today again. Let me copy the address. Let me see. Are we using the preview network? I guess the preview. Let's monitor that in Cardano scan. AC Explorer was offline for some reason on the preview network, but I'm using the actually Cardano scan. but I will use C Explorer here, and we can see there's this transaction here, and we have sent this amount. So now at the name wallet, we should have this brand new value. Nice. So if you look here, you're gonna see that two UtxOs here for 1,000 ADA, I believe, for each one. So in 1,000 ADA actually, right? So if I refresh here, I expect to have more than the current value. Let's see. Load balance, you can see the double amount. This is not selecting ADA by, and this is not selecting asset types, but because we are using coin function from that currency serialization lib, this is not counting a native assets, only ADA. So if you have like any other kind of token, uh, any other uh, any other native token, it will not be counted here. Just it's counting only ADA because of the coin function we are using, which just works with ADA values. So that's it. This finish our breakthrough. I'll just comment this thing here and should be okay. Thanks for your time. See you in the next video. Bye.